Welcome back. I know this is kind of a long time between the other lift and yap, but I'm going to finish off those questions while I do some dips. So I hope that I can lift some good weight. I was just on vacation back in Winnipeg visiting my parents and some friends, had some weddings to go to. So we'll see how that little force deload was. I might just be extra strong. That'd be great. I might be a little bit weaker. We'll see. But anyways, I'm going to get to some questions. So the first question I want to go over is someone who's been here for a long time. Aaron, great guy, awesome. He was asking about power exercises and then more specifically using power exercises for training judo. He was wondering if sprints and cleans were good enough or just some jumps and cleans were good enough. I can't remember if he mentioned box jumps. I would have to read the comment again. Maybe I'll do that after. But they're good. That's awesome. You'd be getting a lot of power with that, but I would say that that is a little bit incomplete. So when you're looking at, what kind of power exercises you want for your sport, you want to not just think, okay, power in general, the ability to produce force fast and just using any movement that does that, awesome. It still is kind of movement specific, getting good at that and having those specific muscular adaptations and those specific neural adaptations to certain movements. So take a look at your sport and see what kind of movements and muscles are used a little bit more in those. I don't personally compete in judo, but I was watching some videos and noticed that there's not so much of that extension that goes on. It's not necessarily like MMA where you might have someone and you're going to pick them up and throw them, or like wrestling where you're using a lot more of that straight just extension. There's a lot of lateral movement to kind of create space. So a lot of that like pushing with your hip, getting the opponent off balance, creating some space, and then a little bit more twisting or pulling, and a lot of like pulling in. So a little bit more lateral, horizontal, and transverse. So take those into consideration when you're picking your main focus of power exercises. So if I were to program power exercises for a judo athlete, I would maybe look at doing some, maybe like my favorite, momentum rows. It's a little bit different of an angle, a little bit different focus on muscles. And then, maybe instead of just some like box jumps, which aren't really the best plyo or always the best power exercise, you're not getting that same like landing with them, depending on if you jump off or not. You know what? They're still a good exercise. I'm just going to disagree with what I said right away and just debate myself here. Like they still have their place and they still can be good, but I would look at maybe doing some more lateral type movements, and like lateral type jumps and prioritizing those. Not saying get rid of the cleans and sprints and other stuff, but maybe they are a second priority type power movement. Getting a little bit more of like some power movement with, maybe a side bend, maybe some kind of like medicine ball throw where you're twisting or like leaning to the side, like get creative with it, right? And that is kind of like the sport specific training of it. Looking at what movements are used a little bit more in the sport and choosing the exercises that best stimulate, not simulate, stimulate those movements and the muscles that are involved in the way of the desired outcome. This is that fine line of, okay, if you go too far in mimicking your sport, that sport specific training can become just a bad skill stimulus for one, and two, a bad strength, power, hypertrophy stimulus. So you're just getting the worst of both worlds out of it, and you're not really getting a lot of progress. You want your sport specific movements to vaguely represent what you're doing in that sport, more so the same muscles and like kind of types of movements that are involved, but not so much that it takes away from the effectiveness of the exercise. Like growing up playing hockey, it was like, okay, yeah, you're going to do some pistol squats on a Bosu ball. Getting good at balancing on a Bosu ball and doing a pistol squat, it's not going to have a lot of outcome with skating. Whereas like a much better exercise would have just been to do heavy lunges, or like lateral hops as hard as I could each way. And that would get me a lot more strength and power development than doing a pistol squat on a Bosu ball. I mean, just as a random example, I've seen this with some jiu-jitsu athletes, but doing like pull-ups with a towel or their gi. And it's like, yeah, that can train your grip, but you're taking away from your back exercises and you're not getting the best stimulus for those, where it might just be better to do some specific grip training and then, some really heavy weighted pull-ups or some really heavy rows, and you're getting a much better back stimulus and probably just because of the weight, just as good of a grip stimulus from that exercise itself. And then if you add in some other specific, or not like specific to the sport, but just like grip training itself, then you're probably getting way better stimulus overall. You're going to do better. Yeah, in terms of like what would be good power training for judo is take some of the exercises that would maybe somewhat mimic more of the movements. Maybe I'm a little bit wrong on like the movements that are chosen, but this is just an example of the theory, right? And this goes for all martial arts and all sports. So like I gave that example with hockey, but let's say you're doing wrestling, you know, power cleans would be absolutely phenomenal for that because you're getting a lot of that like triple extension and a lot of that like very extension dominant type throws and work that you have to do. Still have some of that in judo, so it's still good to train that. But, you know, being a little bit more focused with it might give you a little bit better training. And just the way that I like to kind of cover all the bases is, you know, basically do some kind of power training with all the movements you do. So I've put out some shorts on this where it's like, you know, any movement can be a plyo or a power movement. Like curls, do those some sets explosively. Rows, do some sets explosively. Bench press or push-ups, do some sets of those explosively. Squats, do some of those explosively, or like squat jumps. Deadlifts, some of those explosively, which just kind of become a clean, right? Lunges, do some jump lunges, do some lateral jumps, some lateral jump lunges. Like, I don't know, get creative with it, right? Side bends. When I'm doing my core training, I absolutely love doing some regular sets and then some sets where I'm like basically just letting myself drop and then pulling up as fast as I can. I probably look like an absolute psycho, but it's phenomenal. You get a lot of power with that. And then same thing with the twists when I'm lying back. Some sets are hard, heavy, and just like slower because it's heavy weight and controlled. And some sets I'm using lighter weight and I'm just trying to rip back and forth as fast as I can, like an absolute psychopath. So just take some of your movements and just be a psychopath with it and just try to move as fast as you can. Lateral raises, right? Pull downs, pullovers, anything like that. Like look at javelin, or not necessarily just javelin throws, but just throwers in general. Like they're training. They're going crazy, whipping a medicine ball from like a sissy squat as hard as they can up. Or the pullovers that they do. This is a better example. The pullovers that they do where they have a ton of weight and they're just ripping it like ego lifting as hard as they can, using that bounce and then trying to get some momentum. So like stuff like that just takes a little bit of thought. And just because, you know, the Olympic lifts are your typical power exercise doesn't mean that they're the best. And it doesn't mean that it's the best for your certain situation. They're great. They have a lot of benefits. And I'd say that every athlete should do some Olympic lifting. They're fun and they can give you some benefit. But if you don't like them, you don't necessarily have to do them. But they're not always the best for the desired outcome, right? Think of how much maybe like lat and like arm kind of power you're getting from them. Not as much as from an ego row. So find that balance, find kind of what works best for you. Maybe you're already really strong and powerful in that way and you need to work on power in that extension from your hips. That's awesome. You're already going to be getting a lot of power work from your sport. Just kind of like honing in and maybe getting a little bit more specific with certain things to like choose exercises that match that area that needs to be worked. Not so much like the exact specific movement, but more so that area and somewhat that movement. Not for a skill development, but for a general preparedness, general physical preparedness, strength, and power outcome from it. And choose those exercises as the first ones that you do or the ones that you prioritize in those like power days. But I think I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent. Every week I do some power sets with every exercise that I do. So whether that is a full day of doing power stuff or just like some sets after my top strength sets, I do some where I'm trying to move as fast as possible. And I found that has been really beneficial. And with a lot of people that I've worked with, adding that into their programs is great too. It doesn't need to be its own separate day. It can just be some sets on some days. Some days they're first or some days they're second, just in priority. And sometimes it's one set, sometimes it's 5 sets, right? It depends on the exercise, the intensity, and reps and everything. So there's some theory on that. I hope that that was some coherent babbling. And it's time for me to do my next set because I've rested a long time. So let's get to it. I don't know if you can see it, but I got a good old 90-pound nut sack right now, just in case you're curious. These are feeling pretty good today, so I might just take a jump up to 135. I usually don't do my doubles with 135, so might need to blur that out. I don't know. I usually don't do my doubles with 135, so we'll see how it goes. The next question I want to go over is one that is asking if you've built up back mobility and like resilience to be able to work in a rounded back. Is there any point on doing straight back work anymore, like trying to keep a neutral spine? And yes, there is, just for the coordination and strength in being in that position, as well as the efficiency with some movements might be better with a more neutral, or at least trying to keep that position back. Understand that, you know, the spine is going to be rounding a little bit when you're flexing your hips, no matter what. So like, don't worry if it's like super straight. Just think more about, okay, how is my efficiency with this movement? How's my strength? How's my power? So a great example is the Olympic lifts, second pull. It might be really strong off the ground, but you're not going to have that second and third pull and get that power and height on it to get it overhead, as well as if you kept a little bit more of a straight back to allow that longer moment arm from your hip extensors. Yeah, you guys like that? So allow that longer moment arm from your hip extensors to really come through, and then pop up with the quads and extend that bar as high as you can. So it's about understanding when to use it. And it's just movement options and movement variability. Maybe your back gets a little sensitive and hurt one day, and being in that rounded position is actually uncomfortable. But having the skill to be able to keep a little bit more straight of a back might help to calm it down during that time, and then you can build it back up. And then on top of that, just from separate from efficiency of movement, but also just changing the target of what you're trying to target. If you want to keep a straighter back, you might be getting more tension on your hamstrings and glutes in certain exercises. And if you're trying to really work those, that might be the best position to do it. So just because you can round your back and you're strong with a rounded back, it doesn't mean that you need to do every single exercise with a rounded back, and that, you know, trying to keep a straighter back is completely useless and you shouldn't do it. It still has its purpose and it still has its place. Just find that balance. It's not all or nothing. It's, you know, a little bit of everything. Let's try to get 135. 135-pound nut sack. Let's go. Let's see if we can get this for two. I mean, even one. That'd be cool. Whoops. I felt like I really misgrooved. But strength-wise, also felt difficult. I might try that again. 135-pound nut sack, take two. Nope. I was way off on that one. I don't have 135 yet. Oh well. Went a little bit off program. Should have been smarter, but it is what it is. I'm going to go back down to something that was in my prescribed range. I don't know. It's just that 90 felt so good. I just wanted to ego lift a little. I got two solid negatives out of it and a little bit of an isometric on the first one. But going down to 115, we'll see how that is. Hopefully I'm not too tired out to hit that for a couple doubles. Next question that I'm going to talk about is a question that I can't remember right now. Thoughts on arm wrestling training. So, I don't know exactly what kind of thoughts on arm wrestling training you were wondering about, but how I would prioritize it was your follow-up to that. Basically, the movements that are involved in it. So this is going right along with that power training. See what movements are involved in your sport and what muscles are most involved in that sport, and train those. There's a lot of like arm wrestling training that goes around, and they're like doing just the arm wrestling movement with a weight stack. That could be helpful. I haven't done it. I don't know how much it takes away from the stimulus on the muscles. My theory is that it probably takes more away than what you're gaining from making it so specific. Everyone's looking for specific answers for specific questions. And really the formula for it all is the same. It's just the philosophy. It's not about specific sports or specific training systems or specific movements and specific exercises. It's okay, this philosophy. What stimulus, what outcome do you need? and what stimulus do you need to produce that outcome, and then the exercises are what exercises are best going to produce that stimulus. There you go. There, you got your exercises. I could just put that up and just plug and play that with every single athlete that comes to me and walks through the door, and I would get phenomenal results as long as they're working hard and consistent. That is what it is. It's the philosophy. It's not specific things, really. Now you know that philosophy, a little bit of thought. Don't make it so sport specific that it takes away from the stimulus, and don't have it so far away that the stimulus isn't transferable to, like, the muscles that you're working on aren't really transferable to your sport as much. And there you go. In line with that is you can do some training to, get a little juicy, because just having more muscle in general is cooler and better for you. And sometimes that'll help you be able to do more things gooder, more muscle is more gooder is really what I'm getting at. And that is what everyone should strive for. I just want to take a real quick pause here in the middle to announce that I have opened up a Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. I am going to be putting all my programs on there. I'm not using Gumroad for those anymore, so that'll be down soon, and everything will be on Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. There are levels there for just general support. There's levels there that unlock the programs, and then there's another level there for just being an absolute unit where you get the programs and you give a little bit extra support to help me pay off my student loans and put food on my table. So thank you. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You can also sign up to those for free, and you get all the educational resources and just part of the community. And I don't know exactly how I'm going to use it yet. I might use them for announcements. I have some ideas, but I'm open to some suggestions there too on how to maybe improve it. So within reason, maybe I'll get a suggestion box going on them, but it's very new, just started. So I'll link them in the description. If you want to check it out, awesome. If you don't care, that's totally cool too. Just watching the videos is plenty of support and makes me happy as well. So it's just a way for me to make a little bit off this, and even just joining the free is a lot of support and makes me feel good. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of the community. It's been a crazy ride so far, and it is exciting, and I've loved every minute of it, and I just want to keep doing it. It's a lot of fun. So all of you that watch and support make it all possible. So again, thank you very much. I have 25 tucked away on this side. I'm not lying. See, proof. That was a little better. Probably harder than it should have been because of the 135 attempts before, but that was good. Okay, there's one last question that I want to answer, and it comes from an absolute beauty, Jake King of King's Gym in Palm Springs. He said, "How was King's Gym?" It was great. It was tons of fun. Jake is an awesome guy. If you're in the Palm Springs area, I suggest checking that gym out. It's great for powerlifting. They got some strongman stuff, so it's great for that. They just upgraded their location and some of their equipment. So they got some new toys in there, and it's looking awesome. He's doing great things. He's growing. So go check them out if you're in that area. They're King's Barbell Club on Instagram. If you want to, scope it out a little bit before. And if you're ever kind of going through Palm Springs, check them out. So that was the last one I wanted to answer. Just thought I'd give him a little bit of a shout out because he was very nice and very welcoming to me when I was taking a little vacation there to visit my parents, as well as Alex Sterner of Electrum Performance, another great gym. He's in San Diego, so if you're watching this channel, you probably already know him, and check him out, of course, as well. So there we go, obligatory shout outs. Just making some friends, having some fun. So I just want to say thanks everyone for watching, and again, thanks for supporting. Thanks for being part of this community. It means so much to me, and I'm just happy to be getting stronger myself, helping people get stronger, helping people get healthier, helping people overcome their pain and overcome some limiting beliefs. So as always, just go out there and make some gains. Thanks for watching.